The crystalline spires of the Keth-era High Council chamber sparkled with emergency lighting as First Speaker Valen studied the holographic display with mounting horror. The Void Swarm's advance had already consumed 3 more systems in the past solar cycle. Their purple-black ships moved like a plague of locusts across the star map, leaving nothing but dead worlds in their wake. "The Mantis defense fleet has fallen," announced Second Speaker Rethiel, her iridescent scales dulled with fatigue. Their quantum barriers proved useless against the swarm's new adaptation. Valen's secondary hearts clenched. The Mantis had been their strongest allies, their technology centuries ahead of most civilizations in the known galaxy. If they couldn't stand against the Void Swarm, what hope remained for the rest of the collective? "Show me the casualty reports," Valen commanded, though he dreaded the numbers. The hologram shifted, displaying streams of data that confirmed his worst fears. Billions dead. Entire species consumed. The Void Swarm didn't just conquer. They consumed everything, breaking down all matter and energy to feed their endless hunger. Third Speaker Zinera, the youngest of the council, stepped forward. "First Speaker, there may be another option." Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes showed determination. "In the restricted archives, I found references to another species, one that the ancient councils quarantined for being too dangerous to join galactic society. The humans." Valen breathed the word like a curse. Every member of the High Council knew the stories, though few had ever seen the actual records. A species so volatile that the ancients had placed their entire solar system behind a quantum barrier, cutting them off from the rest of the galaxy. "We've monitored their development," Zinera continued. "They've advanced significantly, despite their isolation. Their approach to warfare is unique." The chamber erupted in protests. "They're savages. Too unpredictable." The quarantine was placed for good reason. Valen raised his hand for silence. "Tell me, Third Speaker, why should we consider this madness?" Zinera activated another hologram, showing historical footage of human conflicts. "While we focused on energy weapons and quantum shields, they developed in different directions. Their weapons are primitive by our standards, chemical propellants, kinetic weapons, nuclear fission, but they're also impossible for the Void Swarm to adapt to. There's nothing to assimilate, no energy patterns to copy. More importantly," she continued, "humans think differently. Where we see patterns, they see chaos. Where we follow doctrine, they improvise. The Void Swarm defeats us because they can predict and adapt to our strategies. Humans are unpredictable." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Valen studied the footage of human battles. Their weapons were crude, their tactics seemed random, but they showed a resourcefulness that both terrified and fascinated him. The quarantine was put in place because humans were deemed too violent, too aggressive to join galactic society, Second Speaker Rethiel noted. "But perhaps that's exactly what we need now." Valen's mind raced with the possibilities. The Void Swarm had adapted to every weapon the collective had deployed. Every strategy had been anticipated and countered. But humans might be different enough to make a difference. "If we do this," he said slowly, "we risk everything. If the humans prove as dangerous as the ancients feared, we could be releasing an even worse threat into the galaxy. If we don't do this," Zinera countered, "there won't be a galaxy left to protect." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Valen looked again at the map showing the Void Swarm's advance. At their current pace, they would reach the core worlds within 5 cycles. The collective's greatest weapons had failed. Their strongest allies had fallen. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel," Valen finally ordered. "We'll need our best xenolinguists and cultural experts." And he paused, knowing his next words would change the course of galactic history. "Prepare the codes to deactivate the quarantine barrier." As the council rushed to comply with his orders, Valen gazed out at the glittering capital city below. He wondered if he had just signed the galaxy's death warrant or its salvation. Either way, there would be no going back. The humans were about to rejoin galactic society, and nothing would ever be the same. "May the ancients forgive us," he whispered. "We're about to unleash humanity on the galaxy once again." Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the Lunar Observatory's main viewport, watching the impossible unfold. The quantum barrier that had surrounded Earth's solar system for centuries, the barrier that had been studied and probed by generations of scientists, was dissolving like morning mist. "Multiple contacts emerging," announced Captain Rodriguez from the sensor station. "3 vessels, configuration unknown. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Chen's grip tightened on the railing. Humanity had known they weren't alone in the universe. The barrier had been proof enough of that. But in the 300 years since their quarantine, they had prepared for every possible first contact scenario. Most of those scenarios involved fighting their way out. "Message is translating through the AI systems now," Rodriguez reported. "It's a request for help." The alien transmission filled the command center screens. Chen watched as images of devastation played across them, entire worlds being consumed by what looked like a living darkness. The Void Swarm, they called it, a threat that had already destroyed dozens of civilizations. Admiral, her XO, Commander James Walker, spoke quietly beside her. "The Security Council is assembled and waiting for your assessment." Chen nodded. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes. And James, wake up the Ghost Fleet." The Security Council chamber was packed with humanity's highest-ranking military and civilian leaders when Chen arrived. The alien transmission played on a loop on the main screen. "So," Council President Reyes began, "after 3 centuries of keeping us locked away like dangerous animals, they want our help. The irony isn't lost on us," Chen replied. "But look at their tactical data. These Void Swarm creatures, they're unlike anything in our theoretical xenobiology files. They don't just defeat their enemies, they absorb them. Technology, biology, energy patterns, everything gets consumed and adapted." "And how exactly do they think we can help?" General Zhang asked. "Their tech is centuries ahead of ours. Their ships run on quantum drives while we're still using fusion rockets." Chen smiled. "That's exactly why they need us. Everything they've tried has failed because it's too advanced. The swarm adapts to their quantum weapons, their energy shields, their FTL drives. But us." She pulled up images of humanity's military assets. "We still use gunpowder, kinetic weapons, nuclear warheads. There's nothing for the swarm to adapt to, just raw physics and chemistry." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had spent centuries preparing to break out of their quarantine, developing weapons and strategies based on primitive technologies that couldn't be easily countered or disabled. They had built their entire defense doctrine around being the underdogs. "The Ghost Fleet," Chen continued, 300 ships designed to fight a technologically superior enemy. No quantum tech, no exotic particles. Just good old-fashioned human ingenuity. We've been preparing for a fight against advanced aliens for generations, just not these particular aliens." President Reyes leaned forward. "And what do you recommend, Admiral?" "I recommend we help them." Chen's voice was firm. "Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because this is the opportunity we've been waiting for. We prove ourselves against this threat. We earn our place in the galaxy. And more importantly, we get access to their tech, their knowledge, their resources. And if they try to quarantine us again after we've helped them," someone asked. Chen's smile turned predatory. "Then they'll learn why their ancestors locked us away in the first place." The alien delegation was permitted to land at the Lunar Diplomatic Facility 6 hours later. First Speaker Valen emerged from their ship with his delegation, their crystalline forms catching the harsh lunar light. Chen watched as they took in the sight of the Ghost Fleet assembling in orbit above, warships that must have looked crude and primitive to their advanced sensors. "Your weapons," Valen said through their translator. "They're so simple." Chen finished for him. Primitive. That's the point. You can't hack a bullet. You can't adapt to nuclear fusion. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Will you help us? Valen asked, his multiple eyes focusing on Chen's face. On one condition, Chen replied. When this is over, humanity takes its place in the galaxy as equals. No more barriers, no more quarantine. Valen's crystalline form seemed to shimmer with relief. Agreed. Though I must warn you, if the void swarm isn't stopped, there won't be a galaxy left to join. Chen's response was to pull up a tactical display showing the Ghost Fleet's formation. 300 ships, armed with weapons that would have been recognizable to humanity's ancestors, crewed by warriors who had trained their entire lives for a fight against superior forces. Then let's go hunting, she said. It's time to show the galaxy why they were right to fear us. The command deck of the GSS Hyperion hummed with activity as Admiral Chen watched the latest combat simulation unfold. Beside her, first speaker Valen's crystalline form trembled slightly as human and Catheric crews ran through another unorthodox battle plan. You want to deliberately detonate your own nuclear devices inside our quantum fields. Valen's translator struggled to convey his mixture of horror and fascination. Exactly, Chen nodded, pointing to the holographic display. Your barriers can contain the blast, focusing it directly at the swarm ships. Their adaptive shields are designed to counter energy weapons, not good old-fashioned nuclear shockwaves. But the radiation is precisely what we're counting on, interrupted Dr. Emily Santos, Earth's leading xenobiologist. The void swarm operates like a neural network. They communicate and adapt through quantum entanglement. But a massive radiation burst, that's like static in their system. The simulation played out, showing human warheads detonating within Catheric quantum fields, creating devastating concentrated blasts that ripped through simulated swarm vessels. The radiation aftermath disrupted the surviving swarm ships' coordination, making them vulnerable to conventional attacks. Barbaric, muttered one of Valen's advisors. Brilliant, countered another. Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most elegant ones, Chen said. You've been fighting this war with superiority. We're going to fight it with savagery. The real test came 3 days later at the Battle of Proxima Centauri. The Void Swarm had detected the quantum barrier's deactivation and sent a reconnaissance force to investigate. They found the combined human-Cathera fleet waiting for them. Multiple swarm signatures detected, announced Captain Rodriguez from her tactical station. They're following standard attack patterns, trying to isolate and consume our outlying ships. Chen watched as the writhing mass of purple-black ships approached. They moved like a school of predatory fish, breaking apart and reforming in fluid patterns. Beautiful in their own terrifying way. Launch Operation Thunderclap, Chen ordered. All Ghost Fleet vessels, execute attack pattern Delta. Cathera vessels, maintain quantum barrier coverage as planned. The space around Proxima Centauri erupted in carefully orchestrated chaos. Human ships charged forward, seemingly reckless in their approach. The swarm responded predictably, moving to engulf the apparently vulnerable vessels. Now, nuclear warheads burst within the containment fields of Catheric quantum barriers. Space itself seemed to ripple as the concentrated explosions tore through the swarm formations. The radiation burst that followed disrupted their neural network, turning their synchronized dance into confused chaos. Phase 2, Chen commanded. Show them what else humanity remembers from its violent past. Railguns opened up across the Ghost Fleet, launching tungsten rods at appreciable fractions of light speed. Unlike energy weapons, there was no way to adapt to raw kinetic energy. The swarm's biological ships were ripped apart by the ancient principle of rock beats scissors. Chemical weapons release authorized. Chen continued, her voice steady. Target their biological components. Clouds of engineered bacteria, designed specifically to attack the organic parts of swarm vessels, dispersed into space. The Cathera had been appalled when humans suggested biological warfare, but they couldn't argue with the results. The swarm could adapt to energy weapons, but evolving resistance to an engineered virus took time they didn't have. Valen watched in stunned silence as the swarm fleet was systematically torn apart by weapons his people had considered obsolete millennia ago. "This is not how we wage war," he finally said. "That's why you were losing," Chen replied, not uncannily. "The swarm adapted to how you wage war. They've never faced an enemy who thinks like us, who remembers that sometimes the old ways are the most effective ways." The battle ended in less than an hour. The swarm reconnaissance fleet was completely destroyed, with minimal losses to the combined human Cathera force. More importantly, they had proven that humanity's primitive approach could work. "Send the combat data to all collective forces," Chen ordered, "and get our engineers working with the Cathera teams. I want to see what happens when we combine our primitive weapons with their advanced delivery systems." As the fleet regrouped and began repairs, Chen received a priority message from Earth. The Security Council had reviewed the battle data and approved full military mobilization. The Ghost Fleet had been just the beginning. Humanity's full industrial might was now spinning up for war. "You know," Valen said, studying the tactical readouts, "our ancestors quarantined your species because they feared your violent nature, your tendency to solve problems through force. And now I thank the stars that you never lost those qualities. The galaxy needs warriors, Admiral Chen. It needs humanity's darkness to fight an even greater darkness." Chen smiled grimly. "The swarm is about to learn why the ancients locked us away, and why letting us out will be their biggest mistake." The war room aboard the Cathera flagship Crystal Ascendant had been transformed. Where once pristine holographic displays had shown elegant battle formations, now cluttered tactical screens displayed what looked like organized chaos. Hundreds of human vessels, integrated with Cathera technology, moved in patterns that defied conventional military doctrine. "Status report on Project Prometheus," Admiral Chen asked, studying the massive holographic display of the Void Swarm's main fleet approaching the Orion Arm. Dr. Santos stepped forward, dark circles under her eyes betraying weeks of endless work. "The fusion of human nuclear technology with Cathera quantum fields is ready for full deployment. We're calling them quantum bombs, all the destructive force of a nuclear blast, but contained and focused through their barrier technology. And the biological countermeasures. The engineered phages are achieving an 87% infection rate in swarm biomatter. They can still adapt, but it takes them approximately 6 hours to develop resistance. We just need to keep introducing new strains faster than they can evolve." Chen nodded, turning to Valen. "Your people's predictions." The first speaker's crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy. "The probability matrices suggest this battle will determine everything. The swarm has committed 80% of their total forces to this push. They know we found a way to hurt them. They mean to end this now." "Good." Chen's smile was cold. "Because so do we." The combined fleet of humanity and the collective had assembled at a position nicknamed Thermopylae Point, a narrow corridor of stable space between two massive radiation zones. The swarm would have to pass through it to reach the core worlds. It was here that humanity would show the galaxy why they had been both feared and needed. "All ships, battle stations," Chen's voice carried across the combined fleet. "Execute Operation Ragnarok." The first wave of swarm ships emerged from FTL exactly where predicted. Their purple-black forms writhed against the backdrop of space, more numerous than stars. "They're adapting their biological armor," reported Captain Rodriguez, now serving as liaison officer on the Crystal Ascendant. "Trying to prepare for our previous tactics." "Let them," Chen replied. "Activate the quantum slitstreams." This was something new. Human missile technology combined with Cathera quantum drives. Thousands of warheads, each riding its own microscopic wormhole, materialized inside the swarm formation. The detonations created a cascade of quantum disruptions that ripped apart the swarm's neural network. Phase 2. Chen ordered. "Release the Trojan horses." Seemingly disabled human ships drifted into the swarm formation. The swarm, true to their nature, moved to consume them. That's when the ship's cargo holds opened, releasing clouds of engineered bacteria and swarms of autonomous drones. Another human, primitive technology that the collective had dismissed until now. The battle devolved into what looked like pure chaos to the Keth-era observers, but was actually carefully orchestrated madness. Human ships performed maneuvers that their alien allies considered suicidal, drawing swarm vessels into carefully prepared kill zones. Quantum bombs detonated in precise sequences, creating shockwaves that human vessels surfed to achieve impossible attack angles. "They're adapting to the quantum bombs," Valen warned, his crystalline form vibrating with tension. "Of course they are," Chen replied. "That's why we're about to switch tactics entirely. All ships, initiate Protocol Shiva." The human fleet suddenly broke formation, each ship acting independently, following random attack patterns that made no sense to their alien allies. But the swarm, which relied on predicting and countering coordinated attacks, couldn't adapt to hundreds of ships all doing different, irrational things. "Now the real surprise," Chen said. "Activate the gravity wells." This was humanity's masterstroke. Artificial gravity generators reverse-engineered from Keth-era technology, but used in a way they'd never imagined. Hundreds activated simultaneously, creating a maze of overlapping gravitational fields that tore at the swarm ship's biological components, while human vessels, designed for extreme G-forces, navigated through the chaos. "By the ancients," Valen whispered, watching as the seemingly invincible swarm fleet was torn apart by what his people would have once dismissed as crude tactics. Hours passed. The battle raged across an entire solar system. But gradually, inevitably, the tide turned. The swarm, for the first time in their history, began to retreat. "They're running," Rodriguez announced, her voice thick with emotion. "The main fleet is actually running." A cheer went up across the combined fleet, but Chen wasn't celebrating yet. She turned to Valen, her expression serious. "Now you understand," she said quietly. "This is why your ancestors feared us. Not just because we're violent, but because we never stopped thinking about new ways to wage war. While the galaxy grew comfortable with elegant solutions, we kept imagining worst-case scenarios, kept preparing for them." Valen's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been respect, or fear, or both. "And now, after we've won." Chen's smile held no humor. "Now you have a choice. Either accept humanity as equals in the galaxy, or," she gestured at the battlefield, where the remnants of the most powerful fleet in known space fled from human ingenuity, "or remember this day, and why the quarantine existed in the first place." As the combined fleet regrouped and began pursuit of the retreating swarm, Chen received word that Earth had already begun adapting more of their primitive weapons to space warfare. Humanity, once unleashed, would not easily be contained again. The galaxy was changing. The age of elegant warfare was over. The time of humanity had begun. The galactic Concordat chamber gleamed with crystalline light as representatives from 100 species gathered for what many were calling the most significant meeting in 10,000 years. Admiral Chen stood before them, her formal dress uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate biological and energy constructs worn by the other delegates. The remnants of the void swarm had been driven to the edges of known space, their neural network shattered, their adaptation capabilities crippled by human ingenuity. But that victory had brought its own challenges. The quarantine of humanity, First Speaker Valen addressed the assembly, was based on fear. Fear of their potential for violence, their unpredictability, their stubborn refusal to follow conventional wisdom. Today, we acknowledge that these very traits saved our civilization. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Chen could see the mix of fear and fascination in the aliens' expressions, or what passed for expressions among the various species. Humanity had proven themselves invaluable allies, but also demonstrated why they had been considered so dangerous. The human approach to warfare, Valen continued, has fundamentally changed our understanding of defense. Their willingness to embrace primitive technologies alongside advanced ones, their ability to think in ways that our enemies cannot predict, these are not weaknesses as we once thought, but strengths. And now you want to give them free access to the galaxy. The question came from a Mantis representative, their compound eyes reflecting worry. After seeing what they can do, Chen stepped forward. What we can do, she said firmly, is adapt. Not like the swarm, by consuming and copying, but by thinking differently. By remembering old solutions while embracing new ones. Yes, humanity is dangerous. We've never denied that. But we're also explorers, inventors, dreamers. She activated a holographic display, showing the new defensive networks being established throughout collective space. Human-designed systems that combine basic physical principles with advanced alien technology. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Chen continued. We want to protect it, to explore it, to learn from it. Yes, we remember how to wage war, but we also remember why we wage it, to protect, to preserve, to defend those who cannot defend themselves. The chamber fell silent as images played across the displays. Human engineers working alongside Kethera scientists, developing new technologies that combine the best of both civilizations. Human medical techniques, considered primitive by collective standards, proving surprisingly effective against biological weapons. Human art and culture already beginning to influence alien societies. We propose a new covenant, Valen announced. Not quarantine, but partnership. Humanity will help maintain the peace they help restore. Their unique perspectives will be valued, not feared. Their methods will be studied, not shunned. And in return, asked another delegate. Chen smiled. In return, we learn from you. We grow with you. We help build something greater than any one species could achieve alone. Humanity spent centuries preparing for war against the galaxy. Now we'd like to help prepare the galaxy for peace. The voting was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The quarantine would be permanently lifted. Earth would become a full member of the collective, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. But there were conditions. Humanity will oversee the combined defense forces, Valen announced. Their proven tactical abilities make them uniquely suited for this role, but they will do so under the oversight of the Multi-Species Council. Acceptable, Chen agreed. We've had enough of isolation. We want to be partners, not rulers. As the session ended, Chen found herself in a quiet chamber with Valen. The first speaker's crystalline form caught the light in ways that still fascinated her. You know, he said, when we first broke the quarantine, many thought we were dooming the galaxy. Now they say we saved it. Maybe both are true, Chen replied. Humanity is dangerous. We know that better than anyone. But sometimes you need something dangerous to protect what's precious. And now, what will humanity do with its newfound freedom? Chen looked out at the stars. So many more than were visible from Earth, so many new worlds to explore. Now we do what humans have always done. We adapt. We learn, we grow, and we make sure that the next threat to face this galaxy finds not just humanity waiting for it, but humanity and its allies standing together. Valen's form shimmered with what Chen had learned to recognize as amusement. The ancients would be horrified. Good, Chen smiled. That means we're doing something right. As she prepared to return to her ship, Chen received word that the first joint human-alien defense fleet was ready for deployment. The ships combined human tactical systems with alien technology in ways that would have been impossible just months ago. They were calling it the Phoenix Fleet, a symbol of resurrection and renewal. The galaxy was entering a new age. Humanity had been unleashed, yes, but they had also been changed by the experience. They had learned that their greatest strength wasn't their capacity for violence, but their ability to imagine new solutions to old problems. The quarantine was over. The age of isolation had ended. The future, uncertain but full of possibility, beckoned.